I'm Bruce Carson, and this is the Movie Raid Show.
It's time for the movie raid. Tonight's victim is stuntman, stunt coordinator, writer, and amongst many others, Bruce Carson, that has done many films such as The Nightmare on Elm Street, has done dozens and dozens of other films. Hello.
Hi, Mike, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, are we working? You are also working on some new projects, writing as well as producing. Can you describe a little bit of that? I mean, is that still in the works, or can we check it out anytime soon?
Well, there's two main things I'm working on now. One of them I've been working on quite a while, and it's probably in the distant future because there's a lot of legal issues tied to it, and that's the sequel to the movie I did many years ago. I wrote and created Universal Studios Florida called The Night Brings Charlie. I have written a script called The Night Brings Charlie Back, and that I am working on, and that's going to be in the works for a while. There's a lot of legal issues going on there. And I have another movie that just, I think, went up on IMDb. I'm working with some good people with. And it's another thing I wrote called Dreadwood. It's a what I would call a sci-fi western, and it's a great story, and we've got some good people involved in that. And that's going to hit the ground, I think, a lot earlier than The Night Brings Charlie Back will. So that's where I'm at right now. Those are kind of my two bucket list projects.
Well, it's very cool. Now, you primarily have been working purely within stunt work, but you also had hands-on work within the sets themselves. But working on various stunts, especially from the time that you worked up until the recent times, does the pay become a higher risk, more on the safety involved, as opposed to less safety than the past projects?
Oh, wow. It's kind of funny. I've been doing stunts. I started doing stunts. I did live Wild West shows. I think I started around 1979, maybe 80. I did a lot of Wild West shows. I did them in Las Vegas. I did them at Big Sky Ranch. I did them at Calamigos Ranch in Malibu for years. Had a lot of fun doing that. We never had safety issues, Safety has always been number one on set with me. I've done a lot of films I've coordinated and stuff, and to date, I have not seriously hurt anyone. So I'm pretty proud of that. But, safety is always an issue with this, and you probably brought that up because a lot of things in the news nowadays, there's been a lot of safety issues on set, and, sadly, when you look at those films and you look at what happened, the writing was on the wall. And we saw the safety issues, we saw the problems, and we just let them get out of hand and something horrible happens. But, safety, I've always been a safe stunt coordinator. I always have, and I've always worked with good coordinators, and I've never been seriously hurt. I ruptured my spleen, and what did I rupture my spleen on? I ruptured my spleen on The Hills Have Eyes Part 2. Oh, and I also broke a finger, or I dislocated a finger on that movie. But other than that, my movie I did at Universal Studios Florida that I wrote, The Night Brings Charlie, I busted 2 ribs too doing a jerk line. But that's kind of the extent of the injuries I've had, in 40 years of doing this stuff.
Do you feel today's filmmaking that the use of stunt people can actually often be treated domestically than a part of the actual film itself, as far as the staff, as far as employees go?
That's a tough one. Can you phrase that a little different for me?
Like domestically being treated like lesser than what they're supposed to be treated as opposed to being a full frontal, like treated as a, let's say, supporting actor or the head grip or anything like that and related.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind when you bring that up is, we've never been nominated for Academy Awards. We have done a multitude of stunts and things on camera that people talk about, quite often, yet never getting any recognition for it. I can tell you a quick story. Back years ago, I was nominated for a Stuntman of the Year award for some work I did on Nightmare on Elm Street. I didn't win, but I was nominated. And that was back, I think, in 1984. I was nominated, and they didn't. What's his name? Oh God, Lee, $6 Million Man. Help me out here. Oh God. He was the one behind it because he was a stuntman, when he started, and he wanted to do these awards. He wanted to, give the stuntman a spotlight for once, and the whole industry pretty much was against it. They didn't want, especially the actors, they didn't want us to get any recognition. They didn't want us to, steal their thunder. That wasn't that actor that jumped off that building into that moving car. They don't want people to know that. They want them to think that it's them. And we never addressed that before, ever got into that scenario before. It wasn't until, those first stunt awards that we really realized that they don't like us, talking about being stunt people. They don't like us talking about being the one that actually did that, and they didn't. So yeah, we suffer for recognition. I never really cared about it, to be honest with you, because I was out there doing the work for the money and I enjoyed what I did. But I think in all fairness, stunt people are not treated with the degree of respect they probably should be.
And your time when you were working within this industry, there weren't a lot of groups of stunt people and organizations at the time either, and let alone like certain kind of union or companies or so forth. Like, how does that really affect you between then and now? Or do you think that's more affected to those that are stunting now because everything's more efficient and this and that, but you think that it's more tightly based for them than actually giving them the quality what they deserve to have?
Wow. That whole subject right there is a very, very deep subject. It's, stunt people, when I started, there was very, very few stunt people in the industry. There really was. I think we touched on this earlier. I believe there was probably 100, 150 maybe. This is around 1979, back on the East Coast, and maybe that amount on the West Coast that were working stunt people. It wasn't a big family at that point. Now there's thousands. I mean, it's just full of people. And, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'll probably catch hell for this, but a lot of them I don't think are qualified, to do those certain things. It's like there's been some accidents on set that link directly back to inexperience, people doing high falls and things like that, and it is dangerous. And I don't know if I'm giving a good answer to your question, but yeah, it has changed from when I got in. The industry is now saturated with people that call themselves stunt people, and maybe they're good at something. But in my day, I was good at several things. I was a great motorcycle guy and a fight guy and a high guy, of doing things on height. But I was a utility guy. I could do pretty much everything. If another stunt guy left and they said, "Hey, can you do that?" Yeah, I can do that. Sure I can. Let's do it. But nowadays, there's some very good stunt people out there. Don't get me wrong, and I think they're really good at what they do. But there's a lot of stunt guys in the business now, and we also touched on this. I get people all the time that come up to me and go, "Hey, I want to be a stunt man," and I just kind of laugh and put my head down and go, "We need to talk, son." It's I don't know if you really know what you're getting yourself into.
Especially when today's stunting and everything else that's going on, do you think in this profession, an artist should actually take more than they give to show that what they have when it comes, what it takes? Do you think they should give than taking, especially now when we have everything going on, as opposed to when you started in the industry, it was more about giving than taking?
Yeah, I started out years ago, I had a passion for the business, and I was willing to do, whatever needed to be done to get in. I knew it was going to be an uphill climb. I knew I had no one family-wise. I wasn't a second or a third generation stunt guy. I was a nobody, and that's about the best way to put it. I was a nobody, working on being a somebody. And thank God, I had a likable personality. I had a lot of skills. I was a very high-level martial artist. I raced motorcycles. I raced cars. I did a lot of physical sports. I had a 40-something inch vertical jump. I had a lot of assets to work with as a stuntman. And, by virtue of all of that, I was able to get into the industry, and people liked me. But nowadays, it's a whole different ball game nowadays. It really is. It's, as I said, the industry is oversaturated with people. And I'm going to go out on another limb, and this might shock a lot of people, but I totally believe it's true. I think of all of the active stunt people that are in the industry, and as I said, there's a lot of them, I'll bet you 2% of them, 2% probably make a living at being a stuntman with no further, or, no other income. Just a full-time stuntman going from job to job and making a living. If it's not 2%, it's very close to that. It's very, very low. And I think that sums up the business, in today's world. In my day, in the beginning, I think much more, a much higher percentage of people actually made a living. And now you've got, thousands of people fighting over the same job. So I don't think, and that's the conversation I have with these young people that come up to me and go, hey, I want to be a stuntman. I'm like, we need to talk. There's a lot to talk about. It's not just, I can't wave a magic wand and put you in the industry. And even if I could, it's probably not going to be what you think it is.
What would you consider an actual proving ground in this profession? The type of genre to work in, or the amount of the mental and the physical aspect of it? Is it between those two, or is it the kind of genre that you should just start out in and just do it that way? Or is there something much more to that than just simply doing one or the other?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I have a good answer for it. I would probably go slightly off the rails from your question and say, unless you have a huge passion to be a stuntman, you're going to have to dig pretty deep to be one nowadays. And I don't know if the movie business nowadays is going to fulfill what you're really looking for. You know what I'm saying? It's if you're a second or third generation stuntman, you probably are going to get that. If you're a guy like me walking into the business today, your chances are probably going to be like 1 in 1,000 of actually having a career in the business. You touched earlier about the groups, and that's a major player in the game nowadays. If you're not in a group, I call it a sub-union, but they call it groups. If you're not in one of the groups, you're just maybe you just love the industry, and maybe you love working when you can. But if you're not in one of the groups, your chances of just being a full-time, successful, money-making stuntman are very, very slim, and everybody is trying to get into a group because that's where the money is. They'll send a guy out to talk to producers and to production people that's very, very well known, who started all of this. And I got this from Paul Knuckles. If you look him up on IMDb, Nux, we call him. Great stuntman. I mean, he did Miami Vice. He was the stunt coordinator for Miami Vice and for Chips from the very beginning to the end. And Paul summed it up pretty well, when he said Hal Needham was the guy that went out and started soliciting movies, for his group. He started, Stunts Unlimited, and he would go out and land a movie. He's Hal Needham, and then he would only work his people. By and large, I mean, if you were a super, super good whatever guy, you could walk a tight wire or something. They didn't have anybody in the group that could do that. They would hire you because they had to. But by and large, if you were not in the group, you just were not going to get hired. And now everybody started that. They're like, hey, that's a great system. If we can go out and send a big stunt guy out with a big resume and he can land a big movie and only work us and we make all the money, hey, that's a great idea. And now the industry is, saturated with that. There's probably, 15, 20 groups nowadays. There's Stuntmen's Association, Stunts Unlimited, International Stunt Association, Brand X, Black Stuntmen's Association, Midgets and Dwarf Stunts Association, Women's Stunt Association. They formed all of these groups, and they all try to get into those groups because that's where the work and that's where the money is. Far, far different than when I got in the business.
Now, going into the writing aspect as far as writing your own work, and have been writing your own work as far as film goes, for this to also give a good leverage for stunt men and women when it comes to doing something that's outside the stunt work of that, can that give a good leverage in the industry, or do you feel like this is mediocre, but the passion's there, but it won't give any kind of real profit or even credibility despite that, except for what you were already known for?
I'm not sure about are you saying that does that method work for other phases of the industry, or what are you saying exactly?
Having to work with, as far as the writing aspect and writing your own films and stuff, can that also give some good leverage, credibility to a stunt person outside basically their comfort zone, so to speak, and to further up their career?
It's kind of funny with stunt people. When I got in the industry years ago, and this is going to sound off topic, but it's not. When I got in the industry many years ago, the only stunt school that was out there, or the only sort of authorized stunt school that was out there, was Kim Kahana. I don't know if you've ever heard of him or not. Tim's still alive. He's like 90-something years old and still jumping around like a rabbit. But he had the stunt school in Chatsworth, which is not far from where I'm sitting right now. And he taught stunts. And even Kim Kahana came under scrutiny for doing that. It's not getting outside of your industry is how this connected to your question. If you're not a full-fledged stunt man doing stunts, living for stunts, hanging with stunt guys, partying with stunt guys, blah, 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 you're not in your wheelhouse of how you're going to get into this industry. You got to get out there and make friends. The old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. In the stunt industry, it's both. You got to know the right people to get in, but when you get on the set and you're going to do something, you better know how to do it. And they will make sure you do before they put you in that position. But if you're trying to get in that way, you know what I'm saying? I shot films. I grew up shooting film. I bought 16mm cameras. I bought Arri cameras. I came up shooting and learning the other aspects of the film, but as a stuntman, it really never helped me in any way in the industry. I can remember a couple of jobs where they were doing something action and the actual camera guy was afraid to get in there and shoot it. You know what I'm saying? He was being put in a compromised position he wasn't comfortable with. And they were like, how are we going to shoot this? And I was able to step up and say, I've been running cameras since I was, 18 years old. Give me the camera, I'll shoot it. Well, now the unions would probably take me out and tar and feather me for doing that. But back then I was able to do it. It did get me that, you know what I mean? I did get some extra work doing that and created maybe the position of stunt cameraman. I don't know. But in answer to your question, I'm really not sure anymore it has any bearing on anything. Not really.
Well, go ahead and plug in any websites or anything that you care to promote, or even advice that you care to share as well.
Oh, is stunt related or just Bruce Carson related?
Bruce Carson related. Anything that you care to throw out there.
my business now that allows me to be a stuntman when I want to be instead of when I have to be. I own, with my wife Lori, we have Broadcast Video Warehouse, and just cinemalenses.com and just cinemagear.com, and we sell cameras and lenses to all of the production people, all of the shooters, all the DPs, all the rental houses, and we have our finger in a lot of movies. So if you go to vidgear.com, like video gear, it links to all of those others, vidgear.com, and you can see what I do for a living when I'm not jumping off buildings.
Well, very cool, man. There you have it, everybody. That is Stuntman Bruce Carson.
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Mike. I really appreciate it. And, we could get into a lot more stuff if we ever do another show. There's
I know,
a lot going on with There's a lot going on with it now. I could talk about a lot of stuff. But, hey, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.